Coby White really had his first proper breakout last season, and he's continued that on to this season for the Chicago Bulls and had an even more productive year for them. This is a guy who is kind of a late bloomer in terms of his development in the league, because his first couple of years he looked like a solid point guard who showed some potential. But as time went on, it seemed like he kind of plateaued at that level, and that he certainly wasn't going to be the answer at point guard for the Chicago Bulls. So they went out and they got Lonzo Ball. And under Lonzo, that team, they looked amazing for the first stretch of the season there. The Bulls at one time were the number 1 seed, and DeMar DeRozan was a leading MVP candidate. But then Lonzo gets injured, the team kind of falls flat, and Coby White still, he looks like he's not the answer at the point guard position. And at this point in his career, we are years into it now, and people aren't seeing a lot of progress from him. But then these past 2 seasons, in the absence of Lonzo Ball, when the Bulls truly need a point guard, and really with the absence of Zach LaVine and Vucevic for a lot of games, at least on LaVine's end, and even when they are contributing, even when they are out there playing, they're not necessarily contributing to the highest level. Zach LaVine in his own right, his archetype of player, it's not really the best option to be a winning team. A score-first guard who isn't an elite scorer, that's not really the archetype to go. So they really also need Coby White to not just be a good facilitating point guard. They need him to up his scoring and be a proper modern offensive point guard. And he goes out and does that, and he has his best 2 seasons of his NBA career, and that second one is continuing right now in the absence of DeMar DeRozan as well, who was a great scorer for them. And I really think that he could have been most improved player last year. But the point with all of this is that in the modern NBA, too often we become impatient with a player. Whether it's on social media or just a team's fan base, progression isn't always linear. It can have its stops along the way, and then a player can just all of a sudden, and it's not really all of a sudden, they have the talent. It's just a matter of utilizing that. Because if you are in the NBA, ultimately you are a talented basketball player. It's just a matter of having confidence and being able to utilize that talent to the best of your ability. Obviously, you can argue some have more intangible talents than others, but at the end of the day, they are all talented. And so for Coby White, his first few seasons, when he kind of plateaued, there was talks of him being a trade candidate for the Bulls to move off and go get someone else. And ultimately, they do get Lonzo. They don't move off of Coby, but they do get Lonzo and project him to be the point guard of the future. But now it's really turning out that Coby is that point guard of the future. And it took many years, and it just showed it wasn't a flip. You didn't just flip the switch either. Over his NBA career, he continually does get better, as all players do, just by experience, by playing against NBA level competition, because it's so different from college. So he was continuing to get better in terms of his actual game, and maybe you didn't see that on the production side of things. That's because he didn't really unlock the key to utilizing that talent and that experience that he was getting. But then he gets the green light, and all of a sudden now he has the confidence to really prove himself. He has a chip on his shoulder to be the guy for the Chicago Bulls, and he absolutely goes out and does that. And he is truly the point guard of the future for this team. And it's such a great story because in the modern NBA, sensationalization, big headlines, and impatience are such a huge thing. But Coby White, despite what might have looked like plateauing, ultimately he found a way to utilize his talents when the Bulls needed him to most. And he has become the point guard of the future and the point guard of the now for the Chicago Bulls team. Is he going to go down as an all-time great? Probably not. We need to see another leap from him. And he already had a near most improved player leap. But he could be a couple-time all-star. And that's something that the Bulls haven't experienced too often ever since Derrick Rose left. So for Coby White to even do that, he would be one of the best Bulls that they've had recently. And it was all just because they stayed patient with Coby. They let him develop, and then they gave him the green light, and he was able to utilize that to the best of his ability. And he's really redeemed himself, turned his career around from what may have looked like a plateau, and truly became the point guard of the future. And now he is putting up numbers right now for a Bulls team that really doesn't have a lot of high aspirations, but what they can do is rebuild around Coby White. He is truly the point guard of the future for the Chicago Bulls and the answer at that position when they really had been struggling to find that. And at one point, they didn't believe that it was him, but he has gone out and absolutely proven that he is the guy for the Chicago Bulls. And I firmly believe that he is the player to build around going into the future.